You're listening to the Franchise Freedom Podcast with Giuseppe Grammatico.
All right, we are back with Lisa McGill from Home Franchise Concepts. One other topic, I'm thinking of other questions that I may have. I know we were talking about some topics to go over on the show, but so you talked about budget blinds. And someone listening in said, wow, that sounds interesting. I have blinds in my home, but I know nothing about blinds. And that's a common thing. I have no experience in that specific industry. So taking kind of a step back, what are the characteristics? Are there kind of certain characteristics as far as what type of person or who's a good fit for budget blinds or maybe some of the other brands? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's another question I get. Do I need experience in that specific industry?
Absolutely. So it depends on the brand. We are not a one size fits all. When it comes to budget blinds, to be honest with you, that's our brand that with the kind of presence that we have in the marketplace, the kind of buying power that we have, the margins that you can create, the sort of ease of the business model, we really bring anyone from any walk of life into that business model. It's the only time that I tell people we have to halt on this is if they don't like any sales or people, they don't want to be in people's homes. This is home services. So you have to realize who your customer is, and you have to be willing to be in that segment. But as you get into some of the other brands where you're going to need to hire some crews and sort of build teams for installation, there are some qualities that we look for in our owners, such as the ability to project manage, the ability to hire and manage crews of the type of person that they will be managing. It's a different type of person for Two Maids, which is residential cleaning services, than it would be for kitchen tune-up, where you're hiring some tradesmen, right? Or building some subcontracting relationships and coordinating projects. No matter what, when you're in home services, if you're doing any kind of remodeling or adding a product to the home, there's always a sales component. Right. So if you're not comfortable with sales, then that would be a red flag. Now, most people know that, home services is absolutely booming, and especially during the pandemic where a lot of businesses really, really struggled. Obviously, our brands were flying. More business than our owners have known what to do with. So it is a very hot time for home services right now for success, for lots of leads coming in, people asking for home services. And why would that continue even in a potentially recessionary period? Well, because people right now don't feel with higher interest rates that they can trade up in their houses. A lot of people who thought, well, I want to sell my house because I can get a lot of money for my house. But oh shoot, I can't afford to buy what I wanted to buy. So I guess I'll stay where I am, but I don't like my kitchen. I don't like my bathroom. I don't like the colors in my house anymore, or the window treatments. So this has been something that we have seen that we're going to continue to see. We see the forecast through 2026 as being still extremely strong for home services. If you look at a company like Two Maids, which is residential cleaning services, it is one of the highest demand businesses that we have ever seen. Fascinating. This is, residential cleaning services are not services that the wealthy just use. It's actually the hot spot is your young dual income working family with young kids who they don't want to, they don't want to spend their weekends cleaning their home. So lead generation and demand for the services within our businesses, it just continues to be so strong and is forecasted to continue to be strong. So, but when we're looking at the different models, we have to consider what are the components of the model and what are the skill sets that are required to really knock it out of the park in that particular business. And we have to figure that out with our owners. And I will tell you that we decline people. We absolutely decline people, even when they tell us, please let me do this. We will say to them, this is why we think this is not a good investment for you. I had somebody that I declined who came back again and again. Please let me. I said, trust me, I know what I'm doing, right?
You're giving them a reason, which is,
Yeah.
this is not a rejection letter. Like, all right, well, you didn't pass the test. It's really, this isn't a good fit based off a skill set. Yes.
Yeah.
You like the opportunity, but how sustainable is this going to be? You hate
Right.
sales. You're not, looking forward to going to people's homes. How is this
Right.
going to work? And, you're helping someone out. And I get it. That knee jerk reaction is like, wait, no, I can change. Or, what I tell people when they look at the franchise first. So instead of figuring out their skill sets, what the reason for getting into the franchise, et cetera, they just look at some of the sexy brands and they say, well, this brand, I have to be there 7 days a week. Yeah, I'll suck that up. I really only want to work 5 days a week, but I'll work weekends. And then they find out now they not only weekends, they have to work nights, not just during the day. And they start to settle. And I go, there's so much of an easier way, and you'll kill the overwhelm. And people say, well, what's that approach? And I said, our approach is simple. Whether you work with me or not, I lay it out for them. You could do this on your own, or at least start thinking about it, but think about what your ideal, first off, why you're doing this and what's your ideal situation. Are you working from home, a location? We talked, like you just mentioned, what do your employees look like? Are they W-2? Are they contractors? There's a big difference there in management styles. I've done both. So really thinking about what you want. I can guarantee you there's a franchise for everyone. It's going to take some time to find, but don't settle, right? This is a business.
Don't settle.
Right.
Don't settle just because your buddy is successful in something,
right,
and thinking that you'll be successful in something. Yeah. I tell people once they start in the process and they really get some meat on the bones of the process, write down, put it on paper, a pros and cons list, and weight the pros and cons from 1 to 10 or from 1 to 5, whatever you're comfortable with. Because you know what? A pro that weighs a 3 does not outweigh a con that weighs a 10. Right? And just because you've seen someone else be successful at it doesn't mean that you're really going to be okay with that con over time. Mm-hmm. So be honest with yourself and do the work to find the right fit, because then you're never going to look back. One of the things I love the most is our owners conference. We have our owners conference coming up in January. Mm-hmm. People actually line up just to give me a hug.
That's awesome.
How cool is that?
That is cool.
I always tell people I sleep really well at night because the people that I have worked with are loving their businesses and they're doing really well. And listen, in hundreds of placements, it's not 100%. But I can say that the ones that are no longer in business, of which there's only a few over a period of 4 years with Home Franchise Concept, or 4.5 years now, every one of them came back to me and said, it wasn't the brand. Right. It wasn't the team. You all did everything you said you were going to do. I have a personal reason, and this is the reason why I'm choosing to step away from the business, or I'm choosing to sell the business. Like I said, I sleep very, very well at night. We're not selling 15 packs and things that, that are just big, real estate deals. Responsible franchising, responsible growth, right-sized territories, bite off the right amount that you can chew, and it's different for different owners. Some people it's perfect to buy a 1 territory franchise and then to expand later. Some people, 2 territories is better. I've had a few where 3 territories was just right, but it has to be a specific situation. And the answer to that is not just because you have the money. That's not the answer.
100%. So I love to hear that. And I'm glad I'm not the only one saying this. So this makes me feel much better. So for everyone listening in, I feel like sometimes I'm like, well, am I crazy for saying this? I go, I'm as honest and as direct as possible. I even did a show on the 3 reasons franchisees fail. And people are like, why would you put that out there? And number one, and I said, because it's honest. I want people to make that right decision. But my number one reason was, of the 3, was not following the system. If you're, everything checks off the boxes. If you have no intention of following the system, don't buy a franchise. That's what you're buying. You're buying that infrastructure, the system, the training. They figure it out via trial and error. That's the advantage of a franchise. So, I tell people that, and they go, that's interesting. And then we talk about, being undercapitalized and the list goes on. So, but that's
having
the big
too
one.
big of an appetite for territory.
Right. Buying, right.
I always
just
tell
biting
people
off
more
too
territories
much
does not equal more profitability.
Right. Exactly. It's nice to lock in that larger territory, but let's see how things go. Yeah, you can always add on a complementary brand. Right. It doesn't have to be the whole state. So I agree. And some people get, I think, overly excited. So it's nice to have those conversations and find the true reason. Maybe it's fear of missing out, fear of, their territory maybe being sold. So I think when you talk about the other options, well, budget blinds could sell out, but we can also, you're in the homeowner's home, you can upsell them on residential cleaning with 2 maids, and that list goes on. So there are other options. And I think by giving them the options and educating them, it brings down that anxiety level, and it puts together that plan. What do the next 1, 2, 3 years look like? And putting together that plan and constantly having those conversations with you, those check-in calls to make sure things are going smoothly and where they want to be. So what I'm sure we can talk for hours as topics are coming up, and this is perfect because it does cover a lot of the questions I get on a daily, weekly basis. What else haven't we talked about? Whether it be franchising or people looking into franchising.
I think that it's important to note when you're looking at a franchise is what is the franchise's current ability to support growth. As you get into business, you're going to need help and you're going to need support. And one of the things that we say with JM Family being in our ownership, when JM Family bought us from Trilantic, in just a period of 3 years, we doubled the amount of people that were working under the Home Franchise Concepts umbrella, meaning that they came in and they basically said, how much more support is needed for each brand and in what areas? And they just hired those people. Now, a private equity company would never have done that. Trilantic certainly wasn't going to do that because that's not going to pencil out in a couple of years when they're going to turn you over. So looking at a company that's privately held and looking at the financial infrastructure of that company and how much money do they have to continue to build and provide resources around the franchise as they're needed for things like additional processes and systems and education, right? People to pick up the phone and just be there for you as you're growing. Those are very, very important things to consider because you're not just investing in that business, you're investing in whoever owns that business. In most emerging franchises that are still privately held, in today's franchise world, most of those are going to be sold. And a lot of them these days are being sold to private equity companies. Right. So you've got to consider those kinds of things when you are making an investment in a franchise. Who currently owns them? Who might own them in the future? What are the ramifications of that? And it is definitely one of the things that we hear so often with the structure of Home Franchise Concepts and the private ownership of JM Family is that when they came in, they just said, we're just so confident that our investment is secure, that we're going to have the resources that we need, that the growth is going to be supported, and the money is here for infrastructure. During the pandemic, I'll give you an example. During the pandemic, we have a medical director. We've got economists on staff. JM Family employs almost 5,000 people. Oh, wow. So this JM Family is the 17th largest private company in the United States.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So we have enormous resources. And when the pandemic hit, we didn't know what was going to happen. For budget blinds alone, we took $5.4 million out of the coffers of budget blinds during the time when some of the states had, these businesses shut down. We just divided it and stuck it in the bank accounts of all of our budget blinds owners. I don't know of another franchise that actually did anything close to that. We also did royalty deferments, and then we did royalty forgiveness. Whatever our owners needed, our CEO came out at the time and on video went to the entire system and said, we are not losing a franchise because of the pandemic. We plan for things like this. We have the money to get us through. Don't worry. The pandemic's not going to be the reason why you lose your business. We are here for you. It was incredibly comforting. And I can tell you that, of the several thousand, units that we have across 9 brands, the ownership was just so relieved. because they were afraid that they wouldn't make it, and that what would happen if the franchise can't afford to support them through this time. But we could.
That's huge. I did not know that. So that is big. And that's actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because when we talk about the questions, they're always asking people, families I'm working with, what questions should I be asking? And I said, well, a lot of the questions, and you have questions, concerns, you want to make sure those are addressed. But at the end of the day, this is that going back, long-term relationships, sustainability. Do you feel like the brand will support you? What's in place? But we added that because of COVID. What did the brand do during COVID to truly support their franchisees? And maybe it wasn't a credit per se, but they shifted gears and they added a revenue stream, or they brought from in-person to virtual, whatever it was. Asking that. So that's another layer of questions. What did you do during COVID? And, what is the growth plan? How do you plan on supporting us? Because it is a long-term, any franchise can get up and running, but you want to be doing well, 1, 2, 5, 10 years from now. So what does that all look like? Are there additional revenue streams? What kind of money are you reinvesting in the franchises? Those are important questions. And I've had someone come back to me saying, well, I feel bad asking. And I said, well, why do you feel bad? This is just like any investment. You just want a clear path. And maybe it's, things change and there's pivots, and we get all that, but you want to have that comfort level in the franchisor. And that's really what it comes down to. Do you have faith that the franchisor will support you, train you, back you up, and really help you grow within the business? And if the answer is yes, well, that's potentially a really good reason to move forward with the brand.
Yeah. Something that comes up frequently also, Giuseppe, is that with this sort of common movement for franchises to hire outside sales organizations to sell their franchises, some of the people who are looking at franchises, when they get to us, they say, well, aren't you just going to give me a sales webinar and tell me why I should buy this? And we just don't do that. We don't. We have webinars, sure, but I don't sit with a PowerPoint and say, okay, on our first call, buckle up for half an hour because I'm going to tell you why you should buy this franchise. As a matter of fact, I tell my clients, if you ever feel like I'm selling you a franchise, I want you to call me out on it, because the job that I'm going to give to you in our process together is that I want you to sell me on why you think this is what you want to do. And when we get to that point where your passion meets my passion for my belief in our company, which is definitely going to come across, you're going to hear my passion about what I believe is potentially a great fit for you, right? And why the organization is so successful, and that and that it's wonderful to invest in. But I need to hear from you why you think you're going to be successful at this. And I often ask when they say, well, I've narrowed it down to 2 brands, your brand and another brand. And I say, okay, why is my brand making the cut? Right. Why? I want to know why. And I love what they tell me. They're being thoughtful then, right? They're not just listening to me and ask them questions and saying, yes, no, yes, no, right? I'm making them tell me, because when they're having a bad day one day in their business in the future, and you're going to have one, if you're going to be a franchise owner or a business owner of any kind, you're going to have a bad day. Trust me, right? Oh, yeah. You're going to go back to the foundation of all the reasons why you invested in this franchise. And there have to be a lot of good reasons, right? Sure. You have to have enough knowledge and education getting into a franchise to really go back to those things and say, okay, I invested in this and this is the reason. I believe in myself and this is the reason. I have this skill set that I know is a good match for this. Yeah, I've had a bad day, but I have all the resources, and I personally have everything it takes for this business, or they would not have let me sign those documents.
I love that, because, I love hearing that, because at the end of the day, when we make an introduction to Lisa, we're not on the calls. So sometimes we don't hear those. We get some feedback, but it's really reassuring that the business is run this way. And when, for anyone that thinks that just, hey, let me just throw money at it and any franchise will accept me. Well, maybe there are some companies that do that. I don't know. I don't work with any of those companies, but it's reassuring to know that let's truly figure out. There's nothing to sell. Let's figure out together if this is a good fit. And again, I sleep well at night as well because I enjoy what I do, and sometimes I have to give someone the unfortunate, if I can talk today, news that they're maybe not a good fit for a franchise. But I always leave them with something to say, if you're not a good fit, these are the reasons why, kind of to your point. Give them reasons. Don't just say, you're not a good fit. Next, you're not a good fit. In some cases, you're not a good fit because financially, you should have some living expense set aside, especially if you're going to be leaving your job to do this full time. You want to make sure who's paying your mortgage or your rent, who's paying your health insurance, who's paying your student loans. So it just may be a plan of re-engaging in 6 months and saying, okay, so-and-so, have you put some money aside? Have you been able to cut your expense in order to make this work? So I like to put together those plans because I'm not going anywhere. I always joke and say, I have 2 kids to put to college. So I go, I'm here. So if the timing isn't right, my liner, and I stole this from someone. So it's not, I didn't come up with the line. What was, I'll meet you where you're at. And that's what it comes down to, because a franchise may be the perfect fit. It's going to get you out of that corporate rut and that cycle and just not being happy. It checks off all the boxes. We may have a franchise in mind, but financially you're not there. But personally, you got a lot going on. You're going through a divorce, someone's sick in the family. Let's put that on hold. It's got to be the right timing so that you can launch successfully. So I always say I'll meet you where you're at, but at the end of the day, a decision needs to be made whether to move forward or not, or to put this. But if you do put it on hold, let's figure out the true reasons why, not just excuses to put on hold, but these are the reasons I'm putting this on hold. And this is kind of the time frame. In 6 months, this will be kind of over and I can proceed. So did I miss anything there, or that's?
Well, there's a great podcast. Tim Ferriss does a podcast. It's a TED Talk on fear setting, and I often ask my candidates, "What are you afraid of?" And they'll say things like, "I'm afraid of failing and losing all my money." I'm like, that's not a legitimate fear. I'm like, that's like a big idea that has no legs. I'm like, let's talk about, so what would you actually have to do in order to fail at this and to lose all of your money? Put those things down. What would you have to do? Well, I guess I would have to not answer the phone and, when the calls come in and not go on consultations or whatever, right? I'd say, okay, are you going to do that? Well, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, I could be a terrible salesperson. Might you be a terrible salesperson? Well, no, I'm really not worried about the sales aspect of it. And I think I'm going to be great at that. Okay. Sometimes people say, yeah, you know what, actually, I'm terrible at sales. I actually don't want to do the sales. And I'm like, okay, then guess what? We need to make sure that we cover that component in your business. That's not a hat that you're going to wear, so someone else is going to have to wear that hat. You're going to wear this hat, so that hat has to be covered. But if you break down your fears of what would you have to do to blow it, you realize that those steps that you'd have to do to blow it, for anyone who's really a competent business person, they're not going to screw those things up. Right. So that's where you have to say, okay, then I need to do these things. I need to answer the phone, right? I need to take good care of the teams of people that I hire. I have to create a good work environment, right? I have to, focus on watching my P&L and make sure that my costs are in order. Like, you have to do those things. So advice that I would give listeners is, if you really have this longing to be a business owner, but you have these sort of big blanket fears of, well, I'm afraid that I'll just lose everything and, fail. That's not a legitimate fear. That is just like it's something it's just like a smoke screen. Figure out what business you might be interested in, and then determine, would I screw up those things in the elements of the day-to-day business that I'd have to screw up in order to fail at this? And if there's, 300 other owners in this system that are doing it successfully, will I not be able to be one of them? Will I be the guy
Right.
or the gal that doesn't do what these other people have done? That's it. It's important to really understand what the steps are in a business to make it go. And are you willing to execute those steps? And if you're not willing to execute those steps, then maybe business ownership isn't for you. And Giuseppe, you and I both have people that we go through the process and they realize that this job that they hate isn't so bad after all. When they realize what it would take to be a business owner, right? That they have to be in charge of a lot more things. And then they realize, I don't think I want to do that because I don't think I'm going to be good at it. And then we've kind of reached our goal, right? Is to say, well, your job's not so bad, is it? Right? Until the next time around,
right,
when you say, now I am willing to do all those things because now my job really is bad.
Right now it's really, really, really bad. So, and when people ask me like, well, what's your success rate? And I go, well, what are you basing success on? I go, I educate. So, my job is to educate and connect and let people know as a business owner owning franchise and non-franchise companies, right. Being a corporate executive as well, is really to help guide you through the process. My goal, obviously, is for everyone to be successful, but I can't, once we connect, we're always going to stay in touch, but it's really up to you if you're going to be successful in that business. That's really out of our hands. But our goal, if you look at what we do, is really to educate you, to talk you off, that bridge and just say, well, I want to own a business. Why? I hate my boss. Well, that's really not that good of a reason. It's a reason, but not a good reason. Or I want to make millions of dollars. Again, this isn't all, even a franchise, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of, there's employees involved. There's a lot of moving parts. You got to make sure this is truly the right fit. And that's where we spend a lot of the time before even jumping into looking at a single brand. So could you send me, because, two things. Number one, this has been awesome and we've gone way over and I appreciate your time. So if you're okay with this, I'd like to do a 2-part. So we have 2 weeks with Lisa. That's cool. And then secondly, if I want to make sure I pull up the right one, because I do want to check out that TED Talk. If you have the link for that.
I have it. Sure.
Perfect. This will probably go out hopefully right before Christmas. So It'll be our gift to everyone. It'll be a 2-part episode on what are we calling it? Responsible franchising, part 1 and part 2. I like that. That saves me to get creative and figure out a good title. I think that this nails it. So we'll include that link. And if there are any other resources or anything else you'd like to share with the audience, we're going to include website, contact information, and any other resources we'll include them in the notes. So Lisa, I really appreciate your time. This has been awesome. Again, I appreciate going over the 30 minutes we usually go, but we were on a roll here, and this is a lot of good stuff packed in here. So these are one of the couple episodes that you may want to rewatch a couple times to make sure you pick up on everything we discussed. And if you have any questions on franchising, if you have any interest in looking at budget blinds and the various concepts, let me know. We'll make an introduction with Lisa. But more importantly than anything else, let's figure out if business ownership is the right fit. And that's where we can definitely add value and help out. So Lisa, thanks again. If we don't talk, happy holidays. I want to see pictures of the tree. I'll do the same, and we'll exchange the movie list soon.
Got it. You got it. Thanks. Talk to you soon again.
Take
care.
Thanks for tuning in. Whenever you're ready, here are 3 ways Giuseppe can help. 1. If you've ever considered owning a business of any kind, you owe it to yourself to get a copy of Giuseppe's book, Franchise Freedom. Download your free copy at ggthefranchiseguide.com/book. 2. Want to understand how successful executives make the transition from corporate to owning their own franchise? Join Giuseppe's next online presentation, Franchise Freedom: How to Escape the Corporate World and Have Financial and Time Freedom by Owning a Franchise, by going to ggthefranchiseguide.com/video. 3. Want to work with Giuseppe one-on-one to identify the right franchise opportunity for you, to navigate the process, and get plugged into experienced franchising advisors? Send him an email to gg@ggthefranchiseguide.com with one-on-one in the subject, and he'll send you all the details.